Alice, do you want to?
Yes, Commissioner,
Here.
Tom,
Here.
Andrea. Here. Mayor Medina. Donnie Donatus.
Here.
Christy Galzarano.
Sean Lyon?
Here, Suzanne.
Thank you. Matt,
Here.
Wayne,
Here.
Keith,
Here.
All right, this is quite a fun group. You guys are a lot of fun. Sorry?
We'll need to vote to let her vote.
Oh, can we have a vote to let Miss Christie vote today? Can I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Motion.
Seconded.
All right, motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes unanimous. Do we have to approve the agenda? We're fine on that. And if you guys have conflicts, you know to reveal them, so we're good. And we are going to move to one action item under this one, approval of the Tourist Development Council meeting minutes. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Andrea Young.
Second.
Oh, good, I thought there was going to be something wrong with it. Second by Mr. Hermanson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimous. Mr. Cranish, you're on, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So on pages basically 38 to 51, I was just going to bring your attention to the budget for fiscal 23-24. We sent that out on Friday. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at it. I'm happy to answer any questions or go into detail on any particular area, but I don't really have any specific comments. Obviously, the budget gets bucketed based on two factors. One, what our projected revenue is, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then the second factor is the county ordinance, which pretty much tells us exactly how much to put into each fund. So it's a formula. It's not really rocket science as far as putting the budget together. On the revenue piece, we were running pretty far behind a couple of years ago. We had budgeted, I think it was 19 million, and we ended up at 23 million, so we had a pretty big carry forward. This past year, our budget is 22 million. We're expecting somewhere between 25 and 26 when we're done. So in order to avoid those continued shortfalls, the county manager's office suggested that we push a little higher. So we are putting in a recommendation of 27 million. Obviously, if the economy changes or things like that, we'll have to adjust our budget accordingly, but we'll have ample time to do that. So anyway, with that, I will field any questions that you may have. Otherwise, Madam Chair, we'd be looking for just a vote to accept the budget, and then it'll go to the board in September with the rest of the county budgets.
That's good. Quick question. Just when I'm looking at this here, this table here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on the budget.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, just a question about the budget and the 27 million. This is page 34.
Okay.
So just so I understand this, the 15,598 is the sum of the completed months, right? October through May?
Yes, it should be a subtotal, yeah.
Yeah. And so if we do, I'm trying to project forward what we think 2022, 23 will come to. That's not on here.
Yeah, I don't have a projection on here. My projection actually, if
Let's
we
just say we
want to
match.
put a gentleman's bet on it, I've got 25.7 is where I think we're going to land.
Yeah.
So,
Just matching, even if we go even on the last 4 months. 25.7.
yeah, I think June will be very close, if not up. July, I think will be just a tad under last year. And then we'll see, August, September, I think if we're flat, we'd still end up in the low to mid 25s.
So that would equate to a 5% up for the budget year that we're looking at from this year. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And Peter, of the 5% increase, combination of room rate, but also is it rooms coming online?
Yeah, we've got, there's an additional inventory, so we'll have about, right now we have about 10,400 rooms. We'll have probably by the end of next year, north of 11. So, yeah, I mean, we've got 6 or 7 projects under construction. So construction has slowed, as you know. Labor and other shortages have caused things to slow. But we've got about 12 projects on the books over the next 18 months. So I think there'll be some growth there.
And then in terms of just the room rates, I mean, is there some rule of thumb, or is it always following?
No, STR is projecting that ADR will continue to grow.
Okay.
Occupancy is where we're going to probably see some pullback. So,
We're seeing it already,
With occupancy? Yeah.
and rate resistance.
Hmm.
Yeah, in the last 2 months and forward balance of the year. Well, it's just the growth stopped.
Yeah. Right.
Growth stopped.
And I think that was predicted as other markets opened up and other things happened, yeah.
Yeah.
So the 27 million is an ambitious number. Yeah,
I think so.
yeah.
A motion to approve the budget.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Young.
Me again? Second?
Yeah, second. Everybody's shy today. Second by.
I don't want to hog the seconds.
You can,
That's all
yeah,
right.
you're special.
Wow.
Okay, second by Mr. Hermanson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimous. Marketing, Mr. Winstead.
So, in many ways, the primary role of the marketing committee is setting up for the plan every year and the budget that goes with it. And so we have initial discussions about trends we're seeing in the market, for example, what we just talked about, as other markets open up. And then we're presented sort of an in-depth look at of the marketing plan for the year. So that's much of the work of the marketing committee, and obviously we're here today to recommend, to motion to accept the marketing committee as proposed, the marketing plan. And then my understanding is that also goes to the Board of County Commissioners.
Yes, sir.
So this is the second step in that process. The first step is approval through the marketing committee. And we've had, I can't remember how many meetings we've had this year, but all of them really, in essence, is background info, 3, right? Yeah.
I think 4.
3 or, yeah, lead up to this point. So we're here today to make a motion to accept the marketing plan. But I think first they want to present and walk through some of the highlights, not the entire plan, because we would be here the entire hour to do that. So, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, we took a little over an hour to go through the budget last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm going to do is just hit some of the highlights. Candace is going to try to keep up with me. If you would like, in your notebook, we'll start with page 3, slide 3. This is just, again, a little historical. Right before COVID, we were at 16 million. The COVID year, we dropped to 13, and then we've had pretty much double-digit growth ever since then. So we hit almost 17 2 years ago. Last year, we hit over 23. Like I said, this year, I believe we'll be over 25. And then the budget as Keith said, probably a little bit of a stretch, but looking at 27. So if you go to pages 5 and 6 outline the detail, a little bit more detail, and then we're going to deep dive into some detail in a little bit. But if you look at slides 5 and 6, 5 is the revenue side, and then the next slide 6, is the expense. The 14.3 million is the promotional activities. That's obviously a huge chunk of money. We will break that down into some detail as we go through the plan. Just as a side note, and some of you may have heard, but it's my understanding that the Cocoa Beach Hotel Association will be seeking a grant from this budget. So depending on the board and what action is taken, that money would probably come out of the 14 million, and I'll show you specifically where that might come from as we go through the budget. Okay, next I'm going to get into the market trends section. That starts in slide 9. We already talked about TDT, so if you go to slide 10, little bit about lodging data. Obviously, we had significant growth in the hotel numbers. So just looking at hotel represents about 2/3 of TDT. Vacation rental represents 1/3. So hotel obviously is a significant chunk, and that's what we look at. Occupancy last year was up almost 14%, ADR 20%, RevPAR nearly 37%. So had a lot of growth last year. We're still seeing growth. As Tom mentioned, we're beginning to see some slowing, certainly in the occupancy. Occupancy is probably tracking the last 2 months. It's been down about 4%, but ADR has still grown a little bit. So we're still seeing some growth in the ADR side, but a little shrinking in the occupancy. If you skip to slide 12, slide 12 has the inventory and room night demand. Last year, we were doing very well against our peer set. We grew almost 16% in room night demand, which is the number of rooms rented. You can see our peer set down at the bottom there. Inventory, we expect inventory will grow over the next year, so we'll see what that total is. We think it's going to be in the neighborhood of 1,000 to 1,200 rooms. Again, some of those projects might be a little bit slower to come, so we'll just have to kind of wait and see as we get into next year. Next, just go to the strategic consideration section on slide 15. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out. Our focus the last couple of years has been really looking at source markets and really trying to push demand out of those source markets. And I'll show you a slide a little bit later that really tells you what markets there are and what our intentions are. If we're able to, add some additional markets to that list, that would be something that I would want to do with incremental funds. The other thing is, using data. You've heard me talk, I'm a big data person. I think it's very important to track, behavior, track what people are doing, certainly track our branding efforts and what people are telling us in terms of the ads that they're seeing and how they're responding to those. And then I think next year, because of the potential of some headwinds, I think we need to maintain a lot of flexibility in this plan. So, I added strategy 3 specifically for that, because I think if there's a need to pull back perhaps some ads from outer markets and maybe focus more on the drive market at given times, we need to be able to have some flexibility to be able to do that. So I want to leave some flexibility in there. We also need to leave some funds available if we see the TDT's not achieving what the budget says. We don't want to allocate and spend all those dollars until we know we have them in the bank. So that's the highlights. There's a lot more obviously to the strategy, but that's just some of the highlights. I'm going to skip to slide 19. 19 is sort of where the rubber meets the road in terms of our target. I think we really have 2 core targets. One is, sort of the sweet spot of Gen X now that's, got a little bit more affluent households. They're certainly have children in the household. But we're beginning to see Gen Y, the millennials, coming up. And they are obviously becoming a force, and they're looking for experiences. They're looking for the ability to take vacations. Some of them are beginning to have children, but there are also a lot of couples without children that are traveling in that section. So we want to make sure that we're not ignoring them. And obviously they're our next big family audience over the next 5 to 10 years. So we want to make sure that we're continually talking to them and staying front of mind with them. From a market perspective, Florida markets have always been really critical to the plan. We've started looking at Fort Myers a little bit. They've obviously had a number of issues with the hurricane really damaging a lot of their hotel inventory. So there's sort of 2 ways to look at Fort Myers. One is that there's a population there that are probably looking for the ability to escape. But then there's also an opportunity to maybe steal some business from them per se. and take advantage of people that might be looking for other options. So something to think about. It's not a huge market, and it's not an expensive market from a media perspective, so something that we would look at. And then out of state, I just want to show, well, I'll mention a couple of things, and I'll show you the next slide, but the out-of-state markets, you know, we added Boston last year, and so that was a new market for us. And then this coming year, we would like to add Detroit if we have the funds. That's something that we would like to add. The other markets that we've come in and out of, depending on airlines, is if there are direct service cities, then we've tried to support those with marketing efforts, and usually it's just us doing the marketing and trying to promote those. New Haven's been going really well. Raleigh, Wilmington has not been going well, and so Avelo pulled out of those markets. But we're looking for additional markets that they may be looking for. Nashville's coming back on in the fall. That was Allegiant, and they had been in there previously. They went out, and now they're looking to go back in the fall. So we'll be back in Nashville. Pittsburgh's been going really well for Allegiant, so we're supporting that. And then Minneapolis has been doing really well for Sun Country, so we've been supporting that. And then we think there'll be a couple of new ones. Allegiant just announced Allentown, Pennsylvania. And that's only because that's a big market for them. So we're going to keep an eye on that, and we'll probably support that. And then internationally, you know, UK and Canada have been primarily where we're doing the advertising piece. In UK, working very closely with TUI to leverage their direct service flights, but also they match our dollars, which is nice. So we turn a $300,000 campaign into a $600,000 campaign, so that's great for us. Canada, we're still waiting for some direct service, still has not happened yet. And then we have a rep in the UK and Europe that works a lot with the tour operators, travel agents, any kind of travel industry folks, and trying to train their agents on our product, and so that they're aware of us, and that's been going really well. We've been working with them almost a year now, and we've seen a lot of additional public relations and other activities in those markets that have benefited us. On slide 20, I just wanted I like to share this. This is kind of our source markets. We work with a company called MotionWorks. MotionWorks has the ability to kind of track people's movement through cellular device tracking, and so they give us some of these reports come from them, and it gives us a little bit of a sense of where people are particularly coming from. This is 2022 data, but it really kind of helps us, inform us, and we're actually trying to see if we can get these reports more frequently, so more on a quarterly basis. You don't see a lot of change from year to year, but I think on a quarterly basis we might see a little bit of shifting from a seasonal point of view, so that we'd like to look at that. But anyway, that just kind of gives you an idea. The highlighted cities and markets are where we're considering and potentially doing marketing and advertising. So, you know, a lot of times people ask, well, how much is a good budget for a marketing budget? How much do you need? Well, you can see we're not even hitting all of our top markets. So, and there's a lot more markets out in the U.S. that we're not communicating with. So, you know, we still have a lot of runway to go before we would say that we're spending as much marketing dollars as we'd like to spend. Okay, we're going to skip. Now we're going to move to the creative section. So that will be slide 24. You know, the drivers of visitation, we all know very much that the beaches and space, and certainly cruise has come on very strong the last couple of years. So those are continued important things that we want to promote. And when people come here, of course, they do a lot of things related to nature and outdoors and other activities. So we want to make sure that we're, you know, showing advertising that depicts all of that. Just a quick, as we page through slides 25 and 26, that was the campaign that started in 2021. We've kind of updated it and refreshed it over the last couple of years, but Then on slide 27, last year, we came up with this countdown to your best vacation idea, where there's a countdown clock on the ad. We're in the midst of finalizing a TV commercial that also supports this campaign. This is new, so we would probably run this a little bit heavier in the rotation as we go into next year. Then we have the cruise campaign on slides 28 and 29 and 30. This campaign's been really successful, and then it's very, very targeted. Last year, we ran about $227,000 worth of media, and it resulted in 33,592 room nights. And really what it does is we go out and we find people that are specifically looking for cruise information, or they're looking for cruises out of Port Canaveral, and then we're trying to convince them to, as you see the ads, trying to convince them that this is a great place to stay pre or post-cruise. And it seems to be working, seems to be generating some traction, and you don't have to spend a lot of money to generate a lot of business out of it. So we'll keep running that one. The beach messaging, obviously beach is a big part of all of our messaging, no matter what campaign it is. Beach is obviously a huge focus, but what we haven't done is we haven't done a specific campaign for beach. So if you look on slide 34, we did surveys so that we could kind of learn, why do people pick the beach vacations that they pick, particularly in Florida. And you can see the top reasons that people pick beaches for vacation: natural beauty, recreational activity, relaxation, lots of other reasons. And then we looked at 4 specific elements of a destination. So beach quality, which came out first, accommodations, which came second, beach amenities, which came third, and non-beach qualities, which came fourth. And this really gives a lot of good information about what people are looking for, what they're interested in. And this is where I think, we can bring in some of the amenities we have. We've talked about safety messages as well. Always swim with where there's a lifeguard, putting that safety message out there, which has become more and more important as we've seen unfortunate, drownings that we've had and things like that. So that's a place where we can incorporate that message, but also talk about why our beaches are so great. And different beaches that we have pay off different pieces of this. So, Sebastian Inlet has one set of amenities that appeal. Cocoa Beach, obviously, Melbourne and its beaches, the National Seashore. Each one has its own kind of uniquenesses, and so we haven't really done a campaign that really delves into highlighting each of these, and we'd like to do that. And then I always say there's always a nugget of cool information out of every piece of research. Slide 36, nearly 44% of the people that we talked to might select a beach as a vacation destination if they knew they could see a rocket launch. So, a lot of people ask, well, why do we need so much information about launches and rockets, and, beaches are really why people come here. Well, here nearly half our audience is telling us, hey, if I could see a launch, I'd pick your beach over somebody else's beach. So I think that's just good information. And if the Cocoa Beach Hotel Association does get a grant, hopefully they would use some of this information in informing their whatever marketing that they decide to do. Okay, next we're going to go into implementation. This is where the rubber meets the road. I would direct you to slide 38. Slide 38 really kind of just shows the layers of our different types of campaigns. So we have annual types of awareness advertising, which includes keyword search advertising, billboards, Facebook advertising, things that'll just run all year long for 12 months. We may go in a little heavier at a time or a certain time of year, but we're always in the market in those platforms. Then, of course, we have our cruise campaign, which we talked about, and then we have seasonal campaigns. So we have a fall campaign, spring getaway campaign, and then summer, which typically we're in, right in the heart of. We usually start that back in May to kind of feed that in, and then we go all the way through August, even into September on that. So this year we did a lot we had a lot fewer gaps in our advertising. There might have been 3 or 4 weeks where we weren't in the market, but there always was some underlying message, even during those times when we weren't running a campaign. So that's kind of that, having that overlay, I think, is really important. And the more we can be in the media, people are constantly making decisions about travel and getaways and vacations, so you want to be in the market as much as you can afford to be. On the next slide, it kind of breaks down the dollars. So this is really where the bulk of that 14.3 million I mentioned was. So you see the annual campaigns just under 2 million, and then the seasonal campaigns are about 8.5, but we would be holding back about 2 million, depending again on TDT and TDT performance, and begin releasing those funds as we got into the spring summer periods. So that would be funds that we would use to uplift the campaigns. But if for some reason we didn't see the numbers, tracking the way that we wanted in the budget, we could hold those back. And this is the area where, if there is a grant awarded, as I mentioned earlier, this is the place where we would pull those funds from. Okay, then we're just going to go through, now we're going to go into some of our other sections. Earned and owned media on page 43. Obviously, we have to run a website, we have an app, we run a lot of social media channels, bless you. And so this is that budget, that's where that is covered out of, as well as agency fees and other things like that. And then on page ahead to a couple of pages to 45, PR. I will say, we've really been able to push the agency. We went through a selection process, went through a new RFP 2 years ago, and we selected Butin again as our PR firm, and they've been doing really great. We've pushed them to try to get more national coverage. That picture on the right, I was on the nightly news with Lester Holt, so that was pretty broad coverage, and those are the types of things that we're looking for, those bigger hits. But, that $275,000 results in literally millions of dollars in publicity that we couldn't go out and buy. So that's where those dollars come in. Then skip to slide 47. I've mentioned supporting co-op partners like the airlines, so this is where some of those funds would be covered. So we do a lot of work with airlines through the airport. Obviously, we work with the port, we work with the chambers, we work with the EDC, so we work with a lot of different community partners. So that's where those are funded out of. The next slide is sports. You'll see that our travel budget went up a little bit this year, is because we're going to add a couple of more sports conferences. So we've been going to Sports ETA, which is a good conference to try to get some business going, but we also think that there's opportunity with women's lacrosse has been a big one that we've been targeting. So there's a conference that we can attend to try to go after those coaches and try to get them to come down here and play on some of our fields. National Fast Pitch, of course, and American baseball coaches are all really critical for us, and we do a lot of spring training types of events with a lot of teams coming down from all over the north and even Canada. So this is that sports budget. It also covers our grant program, which is about, of the 340, the grant program is about 220. So that's really important because that funds events that are bringing heads and beds, basically. And then international, of course, I mentioned. So this includes the money for TUI. It also includes dollars for our rep. It also includes potential dollars that we may need for a Canadian carrier. We're hoping to get Canadian service. So this would give us some funding for that, but just also marketing. So we do a lot of work with Brand USA, Visit Florida, and we tie in a lot with their campaigns. So that's really important, just to keep our name out there in those markets. Even if we don't have the direct service, they're flying into Orlando and they can drive over here. And then just a quick wrap-up, last couple of slides. Slide 50 is travel industry, so we do a lot of work with travel industry partners. We bring a lot of travel agents and travel associates into our community through familiarization tours. This funds that, but it also funds us going and doing outreach. So it's both bringing agents in to familiarize themselves with the destination, but it's also for our staff to go out and make those proactive calls and go to those industry conferences. And then, of course, slide 52, research is very important to us. We have a lot of data. We have MotionWorks. We have a third-party research vendor that does a ton of primary research for us. We have STR and a number of other industry indicators that we get research from. So this is the budget to cover that. And then finally, last but not least, on slide 53, our travel, our memberships, and of course the tax collector fees that are associated with collecting those funds in that budget. So, you know, highlights of that really are some new markets, having some flexibility next year being really important, and then, you know, waiting to see if there are grant funds that are going to be awarded out of that, what is that going to do to change this to some extent. So we're kind of waiting for that information. So with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to take any questions, and then Keith can call the question.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Page 20, where you show us all of the states in all of the different countries where the highest amount of tourists are coming in. Is there another chart? Obviously, it's not in this one, but is there a place where we can go and see what time of years these numbers are coming in? Because I'm sure Tennessee is going to be different from Michigan.
Yeah, so right now, we pull this on an annual basis, but I'm trying to get it more quarterly so we can see the differences by season. So that's something on the docket, and we've asked the company to help us with that. So still to come, but we should have that in the coming year.
Okay, so this is a really good report. Thank you for
Yeah.
bringing this. Really nice.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Winstead?
I did want to just make one comment. One thing we liked about the budget that I think is even more true since we last met at the very beginning of July is the flexibility, in particular because of, changes in heat and what we're seeing and what that's going to require us to do in the future if these patterns continue. So just understanding we might be seeing a change right now and being ready for that. With that in mind, the marketing committee did vote to make a recommendation to accept the marketing plan and budget as presented.
You have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, second by Ms. Young. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Oh, Ms. Young, you're on.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. For the Cultural Committee, we had our meeting on July 19th, and we went through our grants, and if you look at your fold-out page here, you'll see all of the different applicants that we had that applied for their grants. You'll see their scores. If you go over to the last column on the right, it's labeled OOC, that's out-of-county visitors that they brought in. We all had that question, what's OOC? So it's out-of-county. It's on your fold-out page. There we go. You'll see.
54, page 54.
Okay, 54.
Fold out in the back, not the front.
Thank you. So you'll see where they ranked. They're ranking the amount of points that the total points overall, the average, and then the mean. With trim to mean means they throw out the highest score, they throw out the lowest score, and that is their remaining score. And this is where they placed according to the ranking. And of course, the amount of grant that they could receive that they qualified for is based on the amount of out-of-county visitors that they bring in. We had only one, which you see down at the very bottom, which is highlighted in red, that did not make the 80 percentile score. All the others did, and we would ask the committee to look at this and give us a motion and a second that we can accept and grant these grants as written. Can I make the motion? All right, motion to accept as written. Second by Mr. Medina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. The next thing we have down is we also funded the BCA, the Brevard Cultural Alliance, which I know Kathy's going to come up here in a minute and speak. And this is a one-year contract. It begins on October 1st, 2003, and the amount is $212,160. This is the pages in your pack that are right behind that fold-out page, starting on page 55. That's the contract. So I'm also looking for a motion, I'll make the motion to accept the BCA contract as written. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Winston. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and those opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Very efficient. Mr. Sword, Capital Facilities, sir?
Next meeting will be August 17th.
That was short.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, just a quick add-on. So you are aware, August 8th, we'll be bringing the capital guidelines to the board. So you'll be seeing that in a couple of weeks. And then once that is approved by the board, then that grant cycle for the capital facilities grant will open. And August 17th, the meeting that will happen then will be any grant applicants that want can come and present to the committee. And then in September, the committee will reconvene and score and vote on the scores for those grants.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Mr. Lachey, are you beach? Okay, good.
So the beach committee had a meeting last week. We're unable to do any grants because obviously our funds are depleted. But we did have some good presentations from the city of Cocoa Beach and also from Natural Resources. City of Cocoa Beach talked to us about this program they have with oysters, and it's pretty interesting, very interesting actually. And we also had presentations from Natural Resources regarding some pamphlets that they developed. I don't know if you guys have seen them yet. One was where to view manatees. It was interactive. I wish I had some actually. But they distribute them throughout the county and to the hotels. Very, very nice pamphlets. And the other one was on recreational activities. And again, they're interactive. They show you where to go. Full color. They have big fold-out maps. So that was very interesting, but no allocations until obviously we get some funds. So as I said, our next meeting is next month, I think.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Galzarano, are you still with us, ma'am?
Hello. So sports committee, that's due at our next week, September 28th.
Thank you, ma'am. I think she just told us when the next meeting is.
The next meeting was the
Okay,
28th, yeah,
okay.
that's what she said, yep.
All right, we're done with the reports. I have Ms. Kathy Ingerman, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon. Kathy Hageron with Brevard Cultural Alliance. And mostly, I just want to thank the TDC, Space Coast Office of Tourism. We work real closely with our colleagues at the Space Coast Office of Tourism. And we want to thank the Tourist Development Council for your past support and also for your support today in extending our contract for next year. So
Thank
I
you.
just want to say thank you.
Thank you. All right, board reports, Mayor Medina.
I have nothing to report, ma'am, other than I'm glad I'm here.
We're glad you're here, too.
Yeah.
Glad you're healthy. Mr. Boucher?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Donatus?
Nothing at this time.
You had a wonderful article written recently about all that you're doing at USSSA, and thank you for coming over so many years ago, but it's great.
No, absolutely. Like I said, it's been mutual beneficial, and hopefully we continue to keep getting better and better. But yeah,
From a
I definitely think
grandmother who has a granddaughter who plays fast pitch tournament, thank you very much.
There you go. Thank you.
Ms. Galzarano, do you have anything, ma'am?
No, nothing else to report, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hermanson?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Mr. Sword?
Nothing to report?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Winstead?
Just one project related to TDC funding, and that is, we're redoing our Africa Loop, primarily adding a lion exhibit, That work has started, and TDC funding is partially responsible for that. It's a dramatic improvement. And next month, we actually shut down that whole loop until the end of September. But I did want to let people know in the fall is when we offer opportunities for people to come to the zoo at different rates. So once we shut that down, they're unrelated, but the timing's the same. It's really 2-for-1 adult admission through the rest of August. And then in September, children are free. So I always encourage people to know that for their communities as options to come visit during those time periods.
And your giraffe?
And Rafiki, our male giraffe, turned 25 today. I know you're all here for that. I was explaining earlier that giraffes and other animals under care, they often have foot issues. That's why they don't live as long as we'd like them to. But we actually are the folks who train folks throughout Florida on how to take care of things like giraffe and zebra feet. So that's why he's healthy at this point.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Young?
I would like to say thank you to the board for your vote of, for your acceptance of the grants. I wanted to mention this year, going through the grants, these were great grants. These people really tried hard. It was really fun. It was a pleasure going through them. I was so moved by going through their grant, and I would go to their website, and then I would look them up, and just looking for something that I would mark them on. And I wound up going to the symphony that night. And then I went further, and I wound up going to the theater that weekend. And I'm already signed up to go down to the Henniger Center in September. So if you just get involved and just look at any of these cultural applicants at what they do, you can't help but jump on board and share their enthusiasm with them. And I would hope that everyone would do that. It's really exciting, and we're happy to have the cultural people that we have. Thank you.
Well, that's comforting to know that you're on board with those.
It's fun.
It's
It's
really
the best thing I
good.
do all year.
Thank you. Mr. Kranis, sir?
Yeah, just one last thing. Speaking of grants, the major event grant program is open, and that closes August 7th. So if anybody, it's for events of 25,000 attendees or more. And if there are any questions about that, they can reach out to our office, and we'll run those numbers for them.
Thank you, sir. Just one thing, the commission yesterday had a conversation for Mr. Steele. If you guys didn't get an opportunity to watch the meeting, you have a life, but he is proposing that the staff does some type of research on how to fund the lifeguards through some TDC funds, so he's going to have that written, but the consensus of the commission was to always send it back to this board. So I just want to make you all aware of that conversation. And that's all I have, and I will see you guys next meeting. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.